Spinosaurus is in part a lot of knowledge taken from having built the T-Rexes in the previous two films. Same process as always. It was done here. It was started with sketches, then went into, that's a 5th scale maquette that you're looking at now, which is awfully large. It's almost 7 feet long. And the difference being here was instead of throwing hot clay up onto an armature that was built, what we did was we took this maquette and had it rapid prototype. There they are walking with pieces of it. It's still a massive undertaking because you can see they're still huge and the level of detail isn't one-to-one with the maquette, so you have to go back and sculpt it into the foam. But what it gives you is it cuts the whole process in half in time. It needs to be put together in sections, which is quite an armaturing feat in itself. But the material sculpts very quickly. It's light. It can be moved around easily, and it's very true. You can see the 5th scale maquette in front. It gives you the right shape. It gives you the form. See, that area has been detailed, and then the other areas above it haven't. But it's a time saver, and it's more user friendly.
It still requires surface sculpting, but it's much more of a...
Because also...
It's a hard foam.
Because it's so large, you can still go in and super detail it on a level that you couldn't even with the 5th scale. So it gives you a direct match, but you can still embellish it further. There you can see them carving in even tiny details into the teeth, all the serrations on it. There's it's getting it ready for molding.
That's been coated with a type of paint.
It helps seal up the foam.
All the porous texture of the foam.
Any of the little gaps that connect it all has been filled with clay. And then here's the mold making process, which was done with a high temp epoxy. And that silver edging around there is how they break the mold down into halves. They break it down into pieces. And they're painting on the surface coat, and that will give you the detail that you need.
And that's an epoxy resin?
That's an epoxy resin. Then they'll build up what they were starting to lay out there is like a dough, which starts to thicken up the piece, and then it's backed with a fiberglass type cloth.
And the dough is very light, so by being thicker without being heavier, it's much more structurally stable.
They're running his fin, and there's a substructure in there that sort of takes up the room and also has a bit of mechanics running through that, so that would enable that spine to move and flex.
They're vertebrae extensions so that it moves with the body.
It was carefully broken down into pieces that would fit in our ovens. Even though we have huge ovens, it's a huge character, so it was broken down sort of modular, like a gigantic model kit. The girls are laying down a spandex, a special made spandex undersurface, which the skin will be impregnated into. That's going over a core, which sort of represents the bone structure of the creature.
Because even though some of the materials and techniques change, some of them don't. It's still about a 1 to 3 inch thick foam latex skin.
We could have used silicones and other materials, but the size of this thing is enormous. It's the head alone, I think, is 6 feet long, not counting the neck, and the weight would just be tremendous. Foam is a very durable, paintable, patchable surface. This character also had to go in the water, so we had to be prepared for all of that. It had to ram into things, so that nose surface on that is actually made out of a slightly different material to compensate for that. And even though you try to make it come out as good as possible, there is little patching and seams, and there's bleeder holes that allow, as Stan mentioned earlier, to not trap air. And you just can't help it. There is a parting seam.